The silent arrival Lyra's wings shimmered with bioluminescent patterns as she adjusted the orbital telescope for the third time that morning. The colors rippling across her delicate wings reflected her concentration, shifting from soft blue to focused violet. She had spent the last 6 hours cataloging atmospheric disturbances in Thessia's upper ionosphere, work that most of her colleagues found tedious, but Lyra loved it. Every data point told a story about her world, about the delicate balance of gases and energy that made life possible on the only inhabited planet they had ever known. The Thessians were a species that had evolved on a world of gentle winds and flowering meadows. Their bodies were slight and graceful, with translucent wings that caught the light of their yellow sun. They communicated through a combination of spoken language and wing patterns, creating a rich tapestry of expression that had taken thousands of years to develop. Their civilization had achieved remarkable things in biotechnology and sustainable energy, but space travel remained a distant dream. They had satellites and orbital stations, but the stars themselves seemed forever out of reach. Lyra stretched her forearms and took a sip of nutrient fluid from the container floating beside her workstation. Through the observation window, Thessia hung below like a jewel, all greens and blues with swirls of white clouds. 3 small moons orbited in harmony, their presence as constant as the heartbeat of her people. She had been stationed on this orbital monitoring platform for 2 full cycles now, and she never grew tired of the view. Her wings fluttered with contentment as she began entering the morning's data into the analysis system. The patterns were normal, predictable, exactly as they should be. Thessia's atmosphere was stable. Solar radiation levels were within acceptable parameters. The lights went out. Lyra's wings flashed bright yellow with surprise. The hum of the station's power systems, a sound so constant she barely noticed it anymore, died into absolute silence. Her workstation screen went dark. The gentle artificial gravity that kept her oriented flickered and failed, leaving her floating in sudden weightlessness. Emergency protocols should have activated. Backup power should have engaged within seconds. But nothing happened. The station remained dark and silent except for Lyra's own rapid breathing. She pushed herself toward the window, her wings instinctively spreading to help her maneuver in zero gravity. Below, Thessia's nightside cities, normally glittering with millions of lights, were going dark one by one. It was like watching stars being extinguished. The entire planetary power grid was failing. Then Lyra looked up and her wings went completely still. Something was blocking out the stars. Not a cloud or debris field, but something solid and vast. As her eyes adjusted to the darkness, she could make out edges, angles, structures that should not exist. The shape was geometric and deliberate, clearly artificial, and it was enormous, easily 5 kilometers long, maybe more. A ship, an impossible ship. A ship that could not exist because the Thessians were alone in the universe. They had searched for centuries and found nothing. No signals, no evidence of other intelligent life. Nothing but empty space and distant worlds of rock and gas. But this was real. This was here. This was happening. Lyra's emergency communicator crackled to life, running on its own independent power cell. All orbital personnel report immediately. A panicked voice broke through the static. Unknown vessel in high orbit. All systems compromised. Return to surface via emergency pods. This is not a drill. Lyra grabbed her survival pack with trembling hands. Her wings were cycling through colors rapidly now, broadcasting her fear to anyone who could see. Purple terror, white shock, red alarm. She couldn't control them. She moved toward the emergency pod bay on autopilot, her mind struggling to process what she had seen. Other station personnel were already there, 12 Thessians crowding into the small space. Their wings created a storm of frightened colors. No one spoke. They all knew what this meant, even if they couldn't say it aloud. They were not alone, and whatever had found them possessed technology so advanced it could disable their entire civilization with apparent ease. The emergency pod launched, carrying Lyra and her colleagues down through the atmosphere. Through the small viewport, she kept her eyes fixed on the massive shape above. As they descended and Thessia's sun rose behind the vessel, light began to illuminate its hull. The ship was dark gray, almost black, covered in armor plating and bristling with structures that could only be weapons. This was not a peaceful explorer's vessel. This was something built for war. The pod landed in the emergency recovery zone outside Thessia's capital city of Harmony. The name felt bitterly ironic now. Ground crews rushed to help them out, their wings flashing with questions and concern. But Lyra barely noticed. She stood on solid ground, looking up at the morning sky where the ship hung like a sword suspended over their world. Within hours, she was summoned to the Grand Council chamber. The 5 council members sat in their traditional circle, but their usual calm dignity had been replaced by barely controlled panic. Elder Thorn, the eldest among them, gestured for Lyra to approach. His wings, normally a dignified silver, were mottled with gray fear. "You were closest to the vessel when it arrived." Elder Thorn's voice was steady, but Lyra could see the tremor in his secondary arms. "Tell us everything you observed." Lyra described what she had seen in as much detail as she could manage. The sudden power failure, the massive ship, its apparent military design. As she spoke, holographic displays around the chamber showed images captured by ground-based cameras. The ship was even larger than Lyra had estimated. Some analysts were suggesting it might be 10 kilometers long. Councilmember Vess, younger but no less frightened, interrupted. "Has it made any attempt to communicate?" "No, Elder." Lyra's wings drooped. 3 hours of silence. No signals, no messages, nothing. "Then perhaps we should initiate contact," suggested Councilmember Kiva, her wings flickering with desperate hope. "Show them we are peaceful, civilized beings. Or perhaps silence is our best defense," countered Councilmember Rice. "If we reveal ourselves, we reveal our weakness." The debate continued for hours while outside the chamber windows the ship remained motionless in orbit. Thessian military forces, such as they were, had been mobilized, but everyone knew their weapons were designed for peacekeeping and defense against natural disasters, not warfare with an advanced alien species. If the visitors chose violence, Thessia would fall in minutes. Lyra stood to the side, watching the council argue in circles. Her scientific mind tried to stay focused, to analyze rather than fear. The ship had disabled their technology without destroying anything. That suggested a degree of care, or at least precision. The vessel remained at a stable orbital position, not attacking or advancing. That suggested patience or caution. These were not the actions of mindless destroyers, but they were also not the actions of obvious friends. 3 days passed. 3 days of planetary lockdown, with Thessians huddled in their homes while their leaders debated and their scientists analyzed. Lyra barely slept. She had been assigned to a team studying the ship's energy signatures, searching for any clue about the visitors' intentions or capabilities. On the 3rd night, Lyra made a breakthrough. She was reviewing spectral analysis data when she noticed a pattern in the electromagnetic emissions from the ship. They were not random. They repeated in sequences that showed mathematical relationships. Prime numbers followed by geometric ratios, followed by what looked like basic chemistry notation. "They are trying to communicate," Lyra said aloud, though she was alone in the laboratory. "They are teaching us their language." She worked through the night, building a translation matrix based on the patterns. By dawn, she had something that might work, a basic framework for understanding the visitor's communication system. Her wings glowed bright orange with excitement despite her exhaustion. The council convened immediately when she sent her findings. Elder Thorn studied her work with ancient eyes that had seen many wonders, but nothing like this. "You believe they are peaceful?" Lyra's wings shifted uncertainly. "I believe they are trying to talk to us rather than simply taking what they want." "That is something." The council voted to respond. Using Lyra's translation framework, they composed a simple message. "We receive your signal. We are the Thessians. We mean you no harm. We wish to understand." The response came within minutes. Not in words, but in actions. A section of the massive ship began to glow. A smaller craft, perhaps 50 meters long, detached from the main vessel. It began descending toward the surface. "They are landing," Councilmember Vess whispered. Her wings had gone completely white with shock. "In the capital city," Councilmember Kiva added. "They are coming to meet us." Elder Thorn looked at Lyra. "You deciphered their language. You will be part of the greeting delegation." Lyra's wings flashed with a dozen conflicting emotions. Fear and honor, curiosity and terror, excitement and dread. She was a scientist, not a diplomat. She studied atmospheric data, not alien species. But she nodded because someone had to take this step. Someone had to be first. The landing site was prepared in Harmony's central plaza. a wide-open space normally used for festivals and gatherings. Now it was surrounded by nervous military personnel carrying weapons that seemed absurdly inadequate. Thousands of Thessians lined the surrounding buildings, their wings creating a sea of anxious colors. Lyra stood with the 5 council members, her wings deliberately set to calm blue despite the fear racing through her hearts. She carried a translation device she had built based on the mathematical patterns, though she had no idea if it would actually work. The alien craft descended with impossible smoothness. No visible engines, no sound except a low humming that Lyra felt in her bones. It touched down without raising dust, as if gravity itself had adjusted to accept its presence. For a long moment, nothing happened. The craft sat silently while hundreds of Thessians and 5 council members and 1 terrified young scientist waited. Then a door opened. Light spilled out, different in quality from Thessia's sun, and 3 figures emerged. Lyra's wings went completely still. Her translator device nearly fell from her nerveless fingers. The aliens were unlike anything in Thessian biology or imagination. They walked on 2 legs with 2 arms, no wings, no tail, nothing graceful or delicate. They were compact and solid, their bodies covered in artificial material that might be clothing or armor. Their skin was various shades of brown and pink, completely without scales or fur. Their faces were flat with forward-facing eyes, predator eyes, hunter eyes. But it was the way they moved that truly unsettled Lyra. They walked with absolute confidence, each step deliberate and strong. They did not flutter or glide. They strode, claiming the ground beneath them as if they owned it. The center figure, slightly taller than the others, reached up and removed a helmet. Lyra saw short dark hair, brown skin, and eyes that swept across the gathered Thessians with sharp intelligence. The alien's mouth opened, revealing flat teeth except for slightly pointed canines. A sound came from a device on the alien's chest. It took Lyra a moment to realize the device was translating, turning alien speech into Thessian words. Greetings. I am Commander Elena Vasquez of the United Humanity of Nations Starship Endeavor. We come in peace from the planet Earth. We are explorers seeking to meet and understand other intelligent species. We mean you no harm. The words hung in the air. Simple words. Peaceful words. Words that should have brought relief. But Lyra looked at the armored ship hanging above their world. She looked at the powerful predatory bodies of the 3 aliens standing before them. She saw the weapons clearly visible on their belts, even as they spoke of peace. And she wondered if the Thessians had just met their saviors or their doom. Understanding. Through fear, Elder Thorn stepped forward, his wings carefully controlled to display diplomatic silver despite the fear Lyra knew he felt. On behalf of the Thessian people, we welcome you to our world. He paused, his wings flickering slightly. We must ask, why have you come? And why did your arrival disable all our technology? Commander Vasquez's expression shifted to something that might have been regret. Her 2 companions remained still, their eyes constantly scanning the area with an alertness that made Lyra's wings twitch nervously. The technological disruption was unintended. Our faster-than-light drive generates an electromagnetic pulse that we normally shield against. We did not know your systems would be so sensitive. Our engineers are already working on a solution to restore your power grid. You have studied our technology. Councilmember Vess's voice carried an edge of accusation.
How long have you been watching us?
3 standard days. The alien to Vasquez's right spoke, his voice deeper and translated with a slightly different cadence. I am Dr. Marcus Stone, xenobiologist. We conduct extensive scans of any world before making contact. We study your language, your culture, your level of technological development. This is to avoid misunderstandings. You invaded our privacy, Councilmember Ray said, his wings flashing red with anger. You disabled our defenses. You positioned a warship above our world. These are not the actions of peaceful explorers. The 3rd human, a female with pale skin and blonde hair pulled back severely, spoke for the first time. Lieutenant James Carter, security officer. Commander, respectfully, I recommend transparency. Vasquez nodded. She looked directly at Elder Thorn, and Lyra saw something in those alien eyes that looked almost like respect. You deserve the truth. Yes, the Endeavor is a warship. Space is dangerous. We have encountered hostile species, pirates, slavers, worse things. We must be able to protect ourselves and those we meet. But I give you my word as a representative of humanity. Our weapons have never been aimed at Thessia, and they never will be. Words are easy. Council member Kiva's wings trembled. How do we know you speak truth? You cannot know, Vasquez said simply, not yet. Trust must be earned through actions, not words. That is why we come to you openly, only 3 of us, unarmed in meaningful ways. She gestured to the small sidearms on their belts. These are for our protection from wildlife, not for combat. Our ship remains in orbit to give you space and security. Lyra had been silent, but now she found her voice. You learned our entire language in 3 days? Dr. Stone turned to her, and Lyra saw his eyes light up with something she recognized: scientific enthusiasm. Your linguistic structure is fascinating. The way you combine verbal communication with bioluminescent wing patterns creates a multi-layered information system. I have never seen anything like it. He paused, seeming to realize he was gushing. Yes, we learned it. We have advanced linguistic algorithms, and admittedly, we humans have a talent for languages. It comes from our own complex history. What is your history? Lyra asked before she could stop herself. Where do you come from? Earth, Vasquez answered. A world that tried very hard to kill us for millions of years. We survived through adaptation, intelligence, and cooperation. We developed technology to overcome our physical limitations. And eventually we left our world to explore the stars. You have met other species? Elder Thorne asked. Yes, Dr. Stone nodded. Dozens of them. Some peaceful, some hostile, all unique and valuable. The galaxy is far more populated than you realize, and there is a community of sorts, species that trade and communicate and maintain peace. Then why did no one ever contact us before you? Council member Vess's wings flickered with confusion. The humans exchanged glances. Vasquez spoke carefully. There are protocols. Rules about contacting pre-spaceflight civilizations. Many species believe it is better to let cultures develop naturally without interference. We humans disagree. We believe isolation is a form of abandonment. Before anyone could respond, an alarm shrieked across the plaza. Thessian military officers rushed toward the council, their wings blazing with urgent red patterns. Elders, we are detecting multiple vessels entering the system. Long-range sensors show 12 ships on approach vector toward Thessia. Unknown configuration. They are not trying to hide their presence. The human's demeanor changed instantly. Vasquez pulled out a device and spoke rapidly in her own language, too fast for Lyra's translator to process. Dr. Stone's expression hardened. Lieutenant Carter's hand moved to her weapon. Show me, Vasquez ordered, her tone now completely military. A Thessian technician activated a holographic display. 12 red dots appeared, moving in formation toward their system. The computer had analyzed their trajectory. Arrival time, 36 standard hours. Vasquez studied the display for exactly 3 seconds. Krell. Her voice was cold. Slavers. They must have detected our arrival and followed to claim what they think is an easy target. What are you saying? Elder Thorne's wings had lost all color, turning translucent with terror. Dr. Stone spoke gently, but his words were devastating. The Krell Dominion preys on pre-spaceflight species. They take them as slaves, workers, servants. They have been doing this for centuries. They probably cataloged Thessia years ago and were waiting for the right moment to attack. Why now? Council member Kiva whispered. Because we are here, Lieutenant Carter said bluntly. They saw a human ship making first contact. They want to claim Thessia before we can establish protection protocols. Lyra's wings flashed through a dozen emotions too quickly to name. They had gone from being alone in the universe to being threatened by alien slavers in less than 4 days. It was too much, too fast. Her legs trembled and she had to lock her knees to remain standing. What do we do? Elder Thorne asked. Can we negotiate? Offer them something to leave us alone? Vasquez shook her head. The Krell do not negotiate, they take. I am sorry, but you need to understand the severity of this threat. If those ships reach Thessia, your people will be enslaved or killed. That is not speculation. That is certainty based on hundreds of years of Krell behavior. Then we will fight. Councilmember Rice said, his wings blazing defiant red. We have weapons. We have warriors. With respect, Dr. Stone said gently, your weapons are designed for peacekeeping. The Krell have been conducting slave raids for longer than your civilization has existed. This is what they do. This is all they do. Lyra watched Elder Thorne's wings tremble, saw the hope die in his ancient eyes. Then we are defeated before we begin. No. Vasquez's voice cut through the despair like a blade. You are not defeated. You have us. The Thessian leaders turned to stare at her. You, Councilmember Vest said slowly. 3 aliens and 1 ship against 12. Commander, Lieutenant Carter said quietly. We should contact command. Request reinforcements. The nearest human fleet is 6 days away at emergency speed. Vasquez said. We do not have 6 days. She looked at the Thessian council, and Lyra saw something in the human's eyes that she could not quite identify. Determination, yes, but something more. Something fierce and protective. We will not abandon you. The Endeavor will position itself between Thessia and the Krell fleet. You will die, Elder Thorne said, his voice breaking. 12 against 1. Even I can calculate those odds, probably. Vasquez agreed calmly. But maybe we can slow them down long enough for help to arrive. And maybe we will get lucky. Humans are good at that, why? Lyra heard herself ask. Why would you die for us? You met us 4 days ago. We are strangers to you. All 3 humans looked at her, and Lyra saw the same expression on each face. Something warm and sad and absolutely certain, Dr. Stone answered. Because someone needs to. Because you are people, and people deserve to be free. Because if we walked away now, we would have to live with the knowledge that we abandoned innocence to slavery and death. And that is something humans cannot do. Cannot or will not. Councilmember Rice challenged both. Lieutenant Carter said, It is not in our nature. We form attachments quickly. We see someone in need and we help, even if it costs us everything. Vasquez turned to Elder Thorne. We have 36 hours. My crew will work with your people to establish defensive positions. We will set up shield generators around your major cities. We will teach your military what they need to know about the Krell. And when those ships arrive, we will show them that Thessia is protected. Protected by 3 aliens and a warship, Lyra whispered. Dr. Stone smiled at her, and despite everything, it was a kind smile. Protected by friends you just met. That is how humanity works. The next 36 hours were chaos. Human crew members materialized in Thessian cities, bringing technology that seemed impossible. Shield generators that could stop energy weapons, point defense drones that could intercept missiles, weapons that the humans reluctantly distributed to Thessian military units. Lyra found herself working alongside Dr. Stone, helping integrate human technology with Thessian power systems. The human scientist worked with manic energy, barely stopping to eat or rest. He explained everything as he worked, teaching Lyra not just what to do, but why and how. Your wings, he said during a brief break. They are more than just flight appendages, are they not? Lyra's wings flickered with surprise. How did you know? I have been watching how you use them to communicate. Dr. Stone smiled. They are like our hands and our faces combined, a way to manipulate the world and express emotion. It is beautiful. Beautiful? Lyra had never thought of her wings that way. They were just part of her, like her arms or her minds, the way the colors shift and flow. Dr. Stone made a gesture with his hands as if trying to capture movement. On Earth, we have creatures called butterflies and birds. They have wings too, though nothing like yours. We find them beautiful. When I look at Thessians, I see that same grace. Lyra's wings flushed warm yellow before she could control them. She quickly forced them back to neutral blue. That is a compliment. In human culture, yes, Dr. Stone's expression softened. I wish we had met under better circumstances. I have 1,000 questions about your biology, your culture, your world, but I suppose those questions will have to wait. You speak as if you will not survive the battle. Humans are optimists, Dr. Stone said, but his smile was sad. We hope for the best while preparing for the worst. I will fight to protect your people with everything I have. But I am also realistic about our chances. Why? Lyra asked again the question that kept haunting her. Why sacrifice yourself for us? Dr. Stone was quiet for a moment, his hands still working on the connections they were building. On Earth, there is a saying. The only thing necessary for evil to triumph is for good people to do nothing. If we left you to the Krell, we could survive. Our ship would be safe. But we would know we abandoned you. We would have to live with that knowledge forever. He looked directly at Lyra. I cannot do that. None of us can. Maybe it is illogical. Maybe it is emotional rather than rational. But it is who we are. Lyra's wings shifted through a dozen shades of blue and purple, emotions she could not fully name. We just met. I do not even fully understand what you are. But you call us friends? Yes, Dr. Stone said simply. That is exactly what I call you. On the orbital platform, Commander Vasquez stood on the bridge of the Endeavor, studying tactical displays. Her crew worked around her with quiet efficiency. They all knew what was coming. They all knew the odds. Captain. Her first officer, Lieutenant Commander James Park, approached. The crew has finished preparations. All systems are at maximum readiness. He paused. Ma'am, I have to ask, are you sure about this? We could jump to FTL. Be light years away before the Krell arrive, I know. Vasquez said quietly. We have 68 crew members on this ship. 68 people with families, with lives, with futures. I know that too, James. Then why are we staying? Vasquez looked at the image of Thessia on the main screen, the beautiful blue and green world with its delicate butterfly-winged people. Because down there is a young scientist named Lyra, who studies atmospheric data and dreams about the stars. Because there are 5 council members trying to protect their people with no weapons and no experience. Because there are cities full of civilians who have never known war and should not have to know it now. They are not our people, ma'am. They are now. Vasquez turned to face her crew. The moment we made contact, they became our responsibility. That is what first contact means. We opened their world to the galaxy, and that means we protect them from the galaxy's dangers. Even if it kills us, Park asked softly. Especially if it kills us. Vasquez smiled grimly. Besides, we are human. We have gotten out of worse situations. Remember the Battle of Proxima? We were outnumbered there too. We had a fleet at Proxima, not one ship. Then we will just have to be more creative. Vasquez returned her attention to the tactical display. The Krell will expect us to either run or fight conventionally. We will do neither. We will show them why humanity has a reputation for being insane. Park allowed himself a small smile. What is the plan, Captain? We make them angry. We make them stupid. And we make them pay for every meter of space between them and Thessia. On the surface, in the Grand Council chamber, Lyra stood with the council and watched the countdown. 12 hours until the Krell arrived. The defensive preparations were complete. Human shield generators hummed at full power around every major city. Thessian military units had been trained in the basics of using human weapons. Civilians had been evacuated to underground shelters. Everything that could be done had been done. Now they could only wait. Elder Thorn's wings were pure white, drained of all color by fear and exhaustion. We should evacuate, he said quietly. Send our people to the countryside, to the islands. Disperse our population so the Krell cannot take everyone at once. Commander Vasquez shook her head. She had returned to the surface to coordinate with the council. That would only delay the inevitable. The Krell would hunt down every Thessian if they needed to. Your only hope is that my ship stops them from ever reaching the surface. 1 ship against 12. Council member Vess repeated the calculation that haunted them all. Vasquez's smile was sharp and cold. You keep saying that like numbers are the only thing that matters in combat. They are not. Skill, surprise, determination, those matter more. And humans excel at all 3. Lieutenant Carter stood by the window watching the sky. Captain, she said quietly, the Krell have entered the system. Time to arrival, 37 minutes. Lyra's wings went completely still. Her heart's hammered in her chest. This was real. This was happening. Vasquez activated her communicator. Endeavor, this is the commander. I'm returning to the ship. Begin combat protocols. She looked at the Thessian Council. Stay in your shelters. Protect your people. And trust us. How can we trust what we do not understand? Councilmember Race asked desperately. You cannot, Vasquez admitted. But you can have faith. And sometimes that is enough. The human commander and her 2 companions walked toward their shuttle. Lyra found herself following them, her wings carrying her forward before her mind could object. Dr. Stone, she called out. The human scientist turned, surprise on his face. Lyra, you should be in the shelter, I know. Lyra's wings shifted through anxious colors. I just wanted to say thank you. For everything. For treating us as equals. For teaching me. For being willing to die for people you just met. Dr. Stone's expression softened. I am not planning to die today. I have too many questions about Thessian biology still unanswered. He held out his hand, palm up in a gesture Lyra had learned was a human sign of friendship. Lyra reached out with one of her 4 hands and placed it in his. The human skin was warm and slightly rough, so different from Thessian scales, but somehow comforting. When this is over, Dr. Stone said, I would like to learn everything about your species, your culture, your art, your science. I want to understand what makes you beautiful. Lyra's wings glowed bright yellow, pure and warm. I would like that. When this is over. When, not if. Dr. Stone smiled. Think positive. It is what humans do. The three humans boarded their shuttle. Lyra watched it rise into the sky, carrying them toward the massive warship that hung above Thessia like a guardian. Or perhaps a sacrifice. She turned and ran toward the council chamber, toward the shelters, toward her people who were depending on miracles. In space, the Krell fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel in a standard attack formation. 12 warships, each one bristling with weapons, each one carrying hundreds of warriors trained for exactly this kind of raid. They had done this dozens of times before. It was routine. Commander Throck of the Krell Dominion studied the tactical display with satisfaction. One human ship alone and outnumbered, the Thessians had no orbital defenses worthy of the name. This would be quick and profitable, but something nagged at him. Humans were dangerous. Everyone in the galaxy knew that. They were unpredictable, violent when threatened, and had a disturbing tendency to win fights they should lose. Still, 12 against 1. The numbers did not lie. Open a channel to the human vessel, Throck ordered. Let us give them a chance to retreat gracefully. On the bridge of the Endeavor, Commander Vasquez listened to the Krell ultimatum. Leave now, human. This world is claimed by the Krell Dominion. Your interference is not welcome. Vasquez smiled. It was not a nice expression. She activated the response channel. This is Commander Elena Vasquez of the United Humanity of Nations. Thessia is under our protection. Any attempt to harm this world or its people will be met with extreme force. You have one chance to withdraw peacefully. Through the speakers, she heard the Krell commander laugh. You threaten us. You are one ship, yes, Vasquez said calmly. But we are human, and that should terrify you. She cut the channel and turned to her crew. All stations, prepare for combat. Show these slavers what it means to threaten our friends. The Endeavor's engines flared to life. Alone against 12. The human warship accelerated toward the approaching Krell. Fleet Lyra watched from the shelter's observation screen as the battle began, and she prayed to deities. She had never believed in that the humans' faith in themselves was justified. The price of friendship. The first volley from the Krell fleet lit up the darkness of space like a deadly fireworks display. 12 ships firing simultaneously created a web of energy beams and projectiles that should have annihilated any target. Lyra watched the observation screen with her wings pressed flat against her back. A Thessian instinctual response to overwhelming fear. The Endeavor was not where the weapon struck. The human ship had accelerated the moment before the Krell fired, diving below the plane of attack with a maneuver that defied every principle of space combat. Thessian tacticians understood. Ships were not supposed to move like that with such speed and precision. The Endeavor twisted through space as if gravity itself bent to its will. That is impossible. A Thessian military observer whispered beside Lyra. The G-forces from that turn would kill any crew. Humans have something called inertial dampeners. Dr. Stone had explained this to Lyra during their work together. We can survive accelerations that would turn most species into paste. On the bridge of the Endeavor, Commander Vasquez gripped her command chair as the ship completed its evasive spiral. Status report on shields at 97%. Lieutenant Commander Park called out. Minor impacts from debris. All systems nominal. Target the lead Krell ship. Vasquez ordered. Magnetic accelerator cannons, full spread. Let us introduce ourselves properly. The Endeavor's main weapons fired. Unlike the energy beams most species favored, humans had perfected the art of throwing solid matter at relativistic speeds. The magnetic accelerator cannons launched dense projectiles at a significant fraction of light speed. The physics were simple but devastating. The lead Krell warship's shields flared and failed under the impact. Armor plating crumpled. The ship's forward section deformed like clay struck by a hammer. It did not explode. The Krell built their ships well, but it immediately began listing, its maneuvering thrusters trying desperately to compensate for the damage. One shot. Vasquez had crippled a ship with one coordinated salvo. How? Lyra breathed, watching the damaged Krell vessel struggle. How is this possible? Elder Thorn stood beside her, his wings flickering with confused hope. They are hunters. It is in their eyes, in their movement. We evolved from prey animals. They evolved from predators. On the Krell command ship, Commander Throck stared at his tactical display in disbelief. His lead ship, the Dominator, had been crippled in a single exchange. His crew's instruments were showing impact velocities that should not be possible. "What kind of weapons are those?" "Kinetic accelerators, sir," his weapons officer reported, his voice shaking. "Projectile velocity estimated at 0.25 light speed, impossible," Throck snarled. "No species has achieved that level of acceleration efficiency. The humans have, apparently." Throck's claws dug into his command chair. "All ships focus fire on the human vessel. Coordinated barrage, pattern Omega. Overwhelm their defenses through sheer volume." The remaining 11 Krell ships repositioned, forming a sphere with the Endeavor at its center. From every direction, weapons fire converged on the human ship. There was nowhere to dodge, nowhere to hide. The Krell had created a kill box. The Endeavor activated emergency thrusters, accelerating directly toward the nearest Krell ship at speeds that made the vessel blur on Thessian sensors. At the last possible moment, it rolled and fired its engines at full burn, using the Krell ship itself as a shield against fire from the other vessels. "They are using our own ship against us," the Krell captain of that vessel reported in horror. "We cannot fire without hitting our own forces. Ram them," Throck ordered coldly. "If they want to play games, we will crush them with mass." The Krell ship accelerated toward the Endeavor. It was 3 times larger, with 10 times the mass. In a collision, the human ship would crumple like paper. Vasquez watched the approaching Krell vessel with cold calculation. Distance, time to impact, her ship's capabilities, the enemy's blind spots, all of it processed through her tactical mind in seconds. "Hold position," she ordered. "Make them think we are trapped." "Captain," Park said urgently, "collision in 17 seconds, I know. Trust me, James." The Krell ship loomed larger, filling the forward view screen. Its weapons were silent, the captain clearly believing the ramming attack would succeed where guns had failed. 8 seconds to impact. Fire ventral thrusters, full burn. Vasquez snapped. "Launch all proximity mines." The Endeavor dropped like a stone, its belly thrusters firing with enough force to stress the hull's structural integrity. At the same moment, the ship released a cloud of small explosive devices, each one packed with precisely shaped charges. The Krell ship, unable to maneuver quickly enough to follow, passed through the minefield. Explosions rippled across its hull. Not enough to destroy it, but enough to blind sensors and disable maneuvering capability. The massive ship tumbled past, out of control. 2 Krell ships effectively neutralized, and the battle had barely begun. In the shelter, Lyra's wings had shifted from fear white to something approaching cautious blue. The humans were not just fighting. They were dominating. Every move the Krell made was anticipated, countered, turned against them. "This is what they meant," she said quietly. "When they said they were dangerous," Elder Thorne nodded slowly. "They did not threaten us with violence. They promised to use violence to protect us. There is a difference." On the Endeavor, Vasquez allowed herself a tight smile. The Krell were good fighters, experienced and well-equipped. But they were not creative. They followed standard tactics, predictable patterns. Humans had learned long ago that survival meant breaking the rules. "Captain, new contacts." Park's voice cut through her thoughts. "Human signatures." Multiple vessels dropping out of FTL. Vasquez felt her heart leap. Already. They were not supposed to arrive for another 4 days. On screen, the tactical display lit up with friendly markers. 1, 5, 10, 15 human warships materialized in Thessian space. The lead vessel was massive, easily twice the size of any Krell ship. Its identifier appeared on the screen. UHNS Valiant, flagship of Battle Group 7. A new voice came through the communication system, calm and authoritative. "This is Admiral Patricia Chen of the United Humanity Navy. Commander Vasquez, please confirm your status." Vasquez almost laughed with relief. "Endeavor engaged with Krell slaving fleet, 12 vessels. We have disabled 2. Taking moderate damage but still combat effective. Admiral, you are early. We were conducting exercises 2 systems over when your distress beacon activated." Admiral Chen's voice carried a hint of dry humor. "We may have exceeded recommended FTL speeds to get here. How are our new friends?" "Scared but safe," Vasily reported. "The Thessians are sheltering. No surface attacks yet. Good. Let us keep it that way. All ships weapons free. Disable Krell vessels where possible, destroy if necessary. Protect Thessia at all costs." The human fleet spread out in a formation that was simultaneously elegant and deadly. Each ship moved with precision, coordinating with its fellows through communication networks far faster than anything the Krell possessed. The Krell fleet, which had seemed so overwhelming minutes before, was suddenly facing overwhelming odds of its own. 12 damaged and disorganized ships against 16 fresh human warships, including a dreadnought-class vessel that carried more firepower than the entire Krell force. Combined, Commander Throck stared at his tactical display and felt something he had not experienced in decades of raiding, fear, retreat, he ordered. All ships emergency jump to FTL. Abort the mission. But human weapons were faster than Krell, faster than light drives. As the Krell ships began powering up their engines, precisely targeted fire from the human fleet disabled their FTL systems. Not destroying the ships, Vasquez noted, but crippling them, leaving them alive but helpless. Within 15 minutes, the battle was over. The Krell fleet floated in space, powerless and surrounded. Not a single Krell had been killed, but their ships were completely disabled. It was a demonstration of such overwhelming technological and tactical superiority that Lyra felt her wings trembling as she watched. This is Admiral Chen to all Krell vessels. You are now prisoners of the United Humanity Navy. Your crews will be treated according to galactic conventions on warfare. Your ships will be impounded pending trial for attempted slaving operations. Any resistance will be met with lethal force. Do you understand? Through the communication channel, Commander Throck's voice came back, defeated and bitter. We understand, Admiral. Good. Admiral Chen's voice was cold. You are fortunate we arrived when we did. If Commander Vasquez had been forced to defend Thessia alone, she would have destroyed every one of your ships rather than allow you to threaten innocent people. Consider this mercy, not weakness. The channel closed. In the shelter on Thessia, silence reigned for a long moment. Then spontaneously, Thessians began to sing. It was their traditional victory song, one that had not been used in living memory because the Thessians had no enemies to fight. But they sang it now, their voices rising in harmony while their wings created a cascade of joyful colors. Lyra stood still, her wings cycling through emotions too complex to name. Relief, gratitude, wonder, and something deeper. A feeling that the universe had just become larger and stranger and more hopeful than she had ever imagined. The next hours passed in a blur of activity. Human medical teams transported down to check on Thessian civilians. Engineering crews began repairing the damage to Thessian infrastructure caused by the initial EMP. The Endeavour limped into Thessian orbit, its hull scarred but its crew alive. Lyra found herself on the surface again, standing in the plaza where the humans had first landed. It felt like a lifetime ago, though only 4 days had passed. The human shuttle descended once more, carrying the same 3 figures. Commander Vasquez stepped out, and Lyra saw the exhaustion in her face. The human moved stiffly, clearly in pain, but her expression was calm and satisfied. Elder Thorn approached, his wings displaying every shade of grateful blue and warm yellow. You saved us. The Elder Thessian said simply, There are no words in our language adequate to express our gratitude. You are welcome, Vasquez replied. And you do not need to thank us. We did what any decent species would do, what any friend would do. Friend. Elder Thorn repeated the word slowly. Yes, that is what you are now. Friends. Dr. Stone emerged from the shuttle, and Lyra felt her wings flush yellow before she could control them. The human scientist looked tired but happy. His eyes found Lyra immediately, and his face lit up with a warm smile. You survived, Lyra said, her voice embarrassingly unsteady. I told you I had too many questions left unanswered. Dr. Stone walked toward her. Now I have even more questions. Your people's response to stress, the way your wings coordinated during that communal song, the biochemistry of your bioluminescence. I could spend years studying and never learn everything. Then stay. The words came out before Lyra could stop them. Stay and study us. Stay and teach us. Stay and be our friend. Dr. Stone's expression softened. I would like that very much. If your people will have me, Elder Thorn spoke up. Any human who wishes to stay on Thessia will be welcomed with honor. You have earned a place among us forever. Over the following weeks, Thessia transformed. Human advisors helped rebuild the planetary defense grid, but this time with shielded technology that would not fail. Trade agreements were signed. Cultural exchange programs established. Thessian scientists traveled to human worlds, while human researchers came to study Thessia's unique ecosystem. But more important than the formal agreements were the personal connections. Lyra worked alongside Dr. Stone every day, learning about human biology while teaching him about Thessian physiology. They discovered that despite the vast differences in their evolutionary paths, both species had developed similar concepts of beauty, justice, and curiosity. 6 months after first contact, Lyra stood in a building that had not existed before, the Thessian Human Friendship Center, a joint facility dedicated to fostering understanding between species. She had been asked to give a speech at its dedication ceremony, and she found herself standing before an audience of both Thessians and humans. Her wings shifted nervously, but she began to speak. 6 months ago, I was an astronomer studying atmospheric data. I thought we were alone in the universe. I thought the stars were distant and cold and empty. She paused, looking out at the diverse crowd. I was wrong. The universe is full of life. Some of it dangerous, yes, but some of it wonderful beyond imagination. She turned to where Dr. Stone sat in the front row, flanked by Commander Vasquez and Lieutenant Carter. The humans came to us when we were vulnerable. They could have left us to our fate. They could have prioritized their own safety. Instead, they stayed. They fought. They risked everything for people they had just met. She felt her wings begin to glow with warm yellow light. That is not just kindness. That is not just duty. That is friendship in its purest form. Lyra looked at the Thessian Council members, at Elder Thorn, who had guided them through the most frightening days of their history. We Thessians have always been cautious. We take time to trust, but the humans taught us that sometimes you must leap before you look. Sometimes you must extend your hand to strangers and hope they take it, because the alternative is isolation, and isolation is just another form of death. She spread her wings wide, letting the bioluminescent patterns paint the air with shifting colors. Today, we dedicate the center to friendship, not just between Thessia and humanity, but between all species who choose cooperation over conflict. The galaxy is dangerous, but it is less dangerous when we stand together. The audience, human and Thessian alike, erupted in applause. Humans clapped their hands. Thessians created a chorus of wing songs. The two species' expressions of joy mixed into something entirely new. After the ceremony, Lyra found Dr. Stone on one of the center's observation decks. He was looking up at the stars, visible now through the twilight sky. The Endeavor was up there, fully repaired and preparing for its next mission. Admiral Chen's battle group had moved on weeks ago, their protective mission complete. You are leaving soon, Lyra said quietly, joining him at the railing. Her wings dimmed to soft blue. The Endeavor has orders to continue exploration. Dr. Stone nodded. But I will not be on it. Lyra's wings flashed with surprise. What do you mean? Dr. Stone turned to face her. I have requested a transfer, a long-term posting here on Thessia. I want to continue my research. I want to help build this friendship we have started. He smiled. If that is acceptable to you, of course. Lyra felt her wings glow so brightly that other Thessians on the deck turned to look. Acceptable? It is more than acceptable. It is wonderful. Good. Dr. Stone held out his hand and Lyra placed one of hers in it, the gesture now familiar and comforting. Because I was not finished with those questions about your biology. Lyra laughed, a sound like chimes. And I have questions about humans. So many questions. They stood together, human and Thessian, watching the stars. Up there, Commander Vasquez was preparing to take the Endeavor to another unexplored system. Perhaps they would find more species in need of friendship. Perhaps they would face more dangers. But they would face it as humanity always did, with courage, creativity, and an unshakable belief that the right thing to do was worth any cost. On Thessia, life continued. Children, both Thessian and now occasionally human visitors, played in the streets. Scientists collaborated in laboratories. Artists began creating works that blended both species' aesthetics into something entirely new. The Galactic Council, which had for so long followed protocols of non-interference, watched the Thessian-human alliance with complicated emotions. Some species were concerned. Humanity's tendency to form protective bonds was well documented and sometimes troubling. But the Thessians were thriving. They were developing new technologies, new arts, new philosophies born from the fusion of two very different cultures. A year after first contact, Lyra received a message. She was wanted on the orbital platform. the same one where she had first seen the impossible ship. When she arrived, she found Elder Thorn waiting, along with Commander Vasquez, who had returned for a brief visit, Lyra. Elder Thorn's wings showed formal blue patterns. The Galactic Council has extended an invitation. They wish to formally recognize Thessia as a member of the galactic community. Comment for next part.